This is the first video like this. But I was just reading this book. It's called Knowledge and Christian Belief by Alvin Plantinga. Hopefully I'm not butchering his name, but I don't have like a sponsorship or anything. I just was reading it. I bought it. I heard that his mind is solid, and so I wanted to hear what he said. I've read a lot of other people's books and stuff, and so I picked this one up, and I was just reading through literally just the preface. And he says something that I've heard a lot and that I really want to try to highlight because I've heard it said a whole bunch, and it hasn't really sunk in until I read it just now, and then I realized something. So just to give you a little bit of background about how and the thought process that drove this is, my background is that I work a little bit in development. I'm not like an app developer, but I help make services for programs, and we do a lot of things in SQL. And so in SQL you have queries, and they do these things where you select data out of them. So everybody's familiar with Venn diagrams, but I want to show you something. So let's just create this, right? So like, this is the outer circle, and so we have up here, we're just going to say, this is the world, the actual tangible physical world, like this is reality. This bubble is reality. So what were we saying? It was like, all right, so this is the world, right? This is reality.
Yep.
So solid lines are something that we know is true. Dotted lines will be something that is possibly true. So, for example, this world, right, could theoretically exist. So we've got science. And then there's this, right? So there's this world with God, right? Well, science, let's assume for a second that this world, or let's give credit that this world could exist, where science is true. It's part of concrete reality. All of this is concretely true, and no one has ever even thought about God, right? God isn't a solid circle. He's not even a dotted circle. No one even brought it up as a possibility. That world could have existed, could exist. It for sure, unequivocally does not exist.
As
It
does not exist.
We do not live in that world.
Right.
Okay, so that's one. We could also live. This is another potential world, right? Oh, we gotta do pen. Concrete. Got it. Concrete. Let's actually make it like this. So again, dotted line is possible, not proved.
Right.
So it's something that has been brought up as a possibility, but it is not necessarily true. So like science, we have the material world, we can show that it's consistent, we know that it has merit, it has benefit. We don't know what kind of truth it shows necessarily. We just know that it does show a truth. Maybe it's not the whole truth, but it's some kind of truth, and we know that it works.
And this is our reality.
And this is at minimum our reality, right? So we know we at least live in this world without question. This is the absolute minimum world that truly exists for the people that are in this conversation right now. So then, how do you tell the difference between the world that we just showed, right, and this world? How do you know the difference? I don't know how to answer that. I don't know how you would know the difference. So,
I mean, it's a thing, like, if we knew how to show that, this wouldn't be a conversation to begin with.
well, right. Yeah, for sure. But so my real point is, right, like, if we know this world we exist in, we know that this world exists, because it's the one that we at minimum live in,
Right.
then this one is at least a possibility.
Correct.
Without question. Okay. So now, like we were just talking about before, we want to do undo? No, we want to do redos. Yes. Okay, perfect. So now let's do more shapes. So we've got things, undo. Let's do stuff like this, like we were doing before. Things like, so we got like, what we got? what do we have before? We had like logic, rules of nature.
Yeah.
Let's do something like, I mean, I think a good one clearly is mathematics. I think that's fine for this, for the sake of this conversation, just for the sake of the illustration. So this exists. Like, this is the world we live in. We know that, like, laws of logic exist. It's just, oh, I want to add one more circle, I'm sorry, because this is also one. And this is actually super critical, because it's what science, it's how science even came about. Philosophy literally is the reason science exists. So this is the world we live in at an absolute minimum. Like, it just is. So theoretically, what should happen? If this dotted line, if God does not exist, what should start happening is this. Anywhere where science and God overlap, these lines should start being erased. Wherever logic and science overlap, God should start being erased. Because you should be like, it just doesn't work. You know, that science shouldn't be. I don't want to make that one not. I don't want anybody to get pissed.
Like, you think science is real?
So, like, logic, boom, that one, I'm not going to get in there. I don't feel like, maybe we'll do this. Is that fine? Yeah, it's good enough. And then we've got, you know, philosophy. Like, these things should start coming up where people are like, yes, philosophically, like, it's clearly demonstrable that this concept is nonsense. Mathematically, this concept is nonsense. Like, this is what should start happening in a world where this doesn't exist. All of these things should start erasing the lines where the existence bleeds into. Right? That's what should happen. This is the interesting part to me, is what do you do with the fact that a lot of these things seem to actually end up going like this. And maybe they don't fill in, you know,
But they start closing the gaps more.
Yeah. What do you do with that? Because then at best, at absolute best, if those gaps start closing in, and you start minimizing these, then the absolute best argument you start ending up with is this undiscovered thing. Oops. Yeah, whatever. That's what happens when you don't pass 5th grade, you know? You just hope, all you can do really, if you don't want this to be true, all you can do is hope that this undiscovered thing unravels enough to make you start being like, oh, maybe we missed something and we can erase these. You know?
Right.
But that's a hope at that point. If all of these things start to connect, the likelihood that you're going to find some random thing on the fringe that's just going to erase enough of the line, you have to start doubting that. It's not reasonable to doubt this at some point. And that's nuts. Like, when I look at this, when I think about it, and I said at the beginning, I said, like, I read this book and I just keep seeing this phrase pop up where people are like, oh yeah, God and science are not compatible. Okay, fair, you can say that, but it should be constantly demonstrating that they're not compatible. And if you can come up with compelling arguments, compelling evidence, compelling philosophical, scientific, logical, like, you look at the laws of nature, when those explanations become compelling, and you recognize you can't tell the difference between this dotted line God versus the solid line God, that's crazy compelling. Crazy. I don't know. That just like, dude, that just hits me like that C.S. Lewis quote. It's, I believe in Christ like I believe in the sun, because not only do I see it, but because by it I see everything else. Putting that into context, what he's saying is literally these start to close.
Right.
I want you to hear this, because this is a crazy thing. This is what Jesus says. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Compare that declaration with this sentence and then this outer circle. I am the way, the truth, and the life. It's a declaration that when you acknowledge me and when you see me, this happens. That's crazy. That's good. That's a good one. Thank you, C.S. Lewis. You're a champion.